Hey everyone, Bible Nerd here. Every Tuesday on my Facebook page, I post trivia questions. So I thought it'd be fun to go through and answer those questions after the day is over. See how many you get right, see how many you get wrong. Check out my Facebook page at Bible Nerd. Every day I post something different. So I have a different theme for each day. You can check out the content there as well. But love to have you be a part of the Facebook page along with the YouTube channel. So check out my video for today and answer the questions that were posted today on Facebook. All right, let's do today's first question. How many children did Jacob have with Leah? Was it A, 4, B, 5, C, 6, or D, 7? Now, why I think this story is so fascinating is, first of all, you've got Jacob, whose name's eventually changed to Israel, who eventually has 12 children through his two wives, Leah and Rachel, and their maidservants. He ends up having children with them as well. So he ends up having 12 children. And this story of how he ends up getting with Leah and how he gets with Rachel and how his name gets changed is some of the most fascinating stories within the book of Genesis. I think the entire scroll is amazing. Then you'll see how often it's referenced throughout the whole New Testament. It kind of keeps going back to these stories of the creation narrative, of Adam and Eve, of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the 12 tribes, Joseph. It's amazing how it all ties back into it. So it really is an incredible scroll and just so rich of so many human stories of what's going on. So Jacob gets his name changed to Israel. He eventually has 12 children who become the 12 tribes of Israel. That's where that name comes from. Leah is the one who ends up having more children with Jacob, even though he really wants Rachel, kind of the first wife he wanted, but he had to take Leah first because that was the older sister. So the person he was working for wanted to get Rachel's hand, kind of earned Leah's, then had to work another 7 years to get Rachel's hand to eventually be able to marry them both. And even later on in the story, he ends up the maidservants end up giving him children as well, which gets him to the 12 tribes of Israel. So if you go to Genesis chapter 35 in the 23rd verse, you'll see the answer to today's question. It reads, the sons of Leah were Reuben, who was the firstborn of Jacob, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, which was Rachel's maidservant, were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilphat, which was Leah's maidservant, were Gad and Asher. So that's the 12 tribes of Israel kind of in their order. And the answer to today's question is 6. So out of the 12 tribes, Leah gave Jacob 6 sons. All right, let's try another one. Who has the title of Prince of the Power of the Air? Is it A, Peter, B, Satan, C, God, or D, Jesus? You'll find this interesting title in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. So let's go to there. Ephesians, New Testament, a letter written by Paul, 2nd chapter, 2nd verse. In which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience. So the answer to this question is B, Satan. Now, it's really an interesting phrase, prince of the power of the air. So I did a little research on this as well, and there's a lot of commentary about the idea that Satan does have some authority. He does have some power, and he's the ruler of this world, which is also the rule of kind of that second level of the cosmos. So the prince of the air. I also saw some great commentaries about how he is always kind of in the air, always in the circumstances, always kind of whispering, just kind of floating around. That's just kind of always surrounded by his little whispers. And I kind of find that to be an interesting take. I don't know if that's what Paul would have thought about as he's writing to the Ephesians, but it is an interesting thought of how our circumstances and how these little whispers are in our ears that are constantly kind of nudging us to do bad things or questioning us to do certain things. Even like what he's doing with Adam and Eve, just kind of floating around saying, hey, did God really say you were going to die? Just kind of that whisper, just the constant idea of these little lies that are being whispered to us. We're not good enough. We're not qualified enough. Or do you really think you're qualified to do this? Who do you think you are? Those types of things. Gossip. Gossip's just this whispering in the air. So I don't know if that's really the full take of what Paul was trying to get here. I think it's more about the fact that if you read earlier in Ephesians, it talks about how Jesus is right at the right hand of the Father and that he is over all. So it's definitely saying that, hey, even though Satan does have some power, he does not have total and absolute power over the realm. but has a significant hold on people, on the flesh. So I really like this. It's the only time he's ever mentioned as the power of the air, but it still is this whole idea of the 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 works of the flesh and this whole idea of the sons of disobedience. So I think that's what he's trying to key on as he's writing to the Ephesians. So the answer to this one is B, Satan. Let's try another one. How many stones did David use to kill Goliath? Was it A, 1, B, 3, C, 5, or D, 7? This is one of those timeless stories. You've got David, who's undersized, a kid, inexperienced, not this big warrior, going against a big, huge warrior. We see it in modern culture even today. You'll see these stories of the modern David and Goliath, somebody standing up against an authoritarian regime, or somebody just standing up to a corporation, or the NCAA March Madness, where it's the story of this young little school that barely gets in on the 16 seed or the 15 seed and beats that number one seed. You've always got these underdog stories throughout our pop culture that tie back to this idea of David and Goliath. I don't know if there's another story in the Bible that isn't more known by anybody even outside of the Bible, is David and Goliath. I mean, obviously, if you're Christian, you're going to know, and you're going to know about Jesus, of course, those types of things. When it comes to kind of a story of the Old Testament, you probably got Adam and Eve, maybe Noah. That's probably a big one that people will know. And you really have David and Goliath. That is just a timeless story. So David in 1 Samuel goes to the stream and picks out 5 smooth stones. But if you go to 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 49, here's how it reads. It reads, "Then David put his hand into his bag and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine in his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead and he fell on his face to the earth." So it only took one of the 5 stones that he had. So I was reading up a little bit about this, and there's some beautiful commentary of what those 5 stones represent. It's not in the Bible, so I think it is just a beautiful symbolism that may be associated with, because it doesn't say why he grabbed 5 stones. Now, some people have said, well, maybe because he didn't trust God or didn't know how many stones it would actually take. Maybe he would miss, or maybe it'd take more than one to knock down this giant. I mean, I would think that I'm going to have a couple extra bullets in the gun, if you know what I mean. If I'm going up against a giant, maybe he'll deflect one of them, or maybe it'll take more than one to take him down. But I don't think that's a lack of trust in God that you have those extra stones. But I saw this beautiful commentary of what they represent. This is probably added on later on as part of what those 5 stones were. But it really shows the character of David. I think these 5 things sum up David as good as anything else. 1 is faith. 2 is trust. 3 is courage. 4 is obedience. And 5 is praise. Those sum up David as probably as good as anything. Because even though he stumbled and had problems, the Bathsheba thing, he always would go back to God, always was praising, always was trusting, always had his full faith, and always pointed back to God. Never took a lot of credit on himself. He was always looking for God's direction in his life. And I think that's a beautiful summary of what those 5 stones were. The answer to today's question is 1. It only took one of those stones. Now, I haven't seen anything that says which of the 5 traits is the stone that he used. It's just an idea of what those 5 stones were. I did see something that was pretty interesting, that Goliath is mentioned in 2 Samuel to having 4 family members, 4 brothers. One of them is unnamed, but he's unnamed and has like 6 fingers on each hand and like 7 toes on each foot or something like that. But his name is actually not mentioned. But there's a possibility maybe he had the other stones ready for the other brothers if they showed up, or so he had these other stones ready for any of the other giants. Or I saw a commentary and said, okay, then he knocks out Goliath and he's dead. What if the other Philistines started coming after him? Or what if they started kind of an all-out war, right there in this battlefield? But they end up saying that they ended up running off because obviously their big champion just went down. They're like, well, if this guy can kill our champion, we need to get out of here and regroup and all that type of thing. Because you see that before the battle with David and Goliath, they were there for quite a while. So the camps were kind of just sitting there ready to go. And Goliath would just get up and taunt the Israelite people like crazy before David finally shows up and say, hey, who is this guy? What's he taunting the Lord's people for? I'm going to go get this guy. So you got to think both camps are just kind of sitting there ready to go. And all of a sudden Goliath goes down and the Philistines are like, whoa, what are we doing? And they just hightail it out of there. So A great story. Again, take a look at it in First Samuel. The answer is number one. It took one of those five stones, but I think it's one of those timeless stories, and why the Bible is so cool. Why the Bible is so cool, and how it's just so many stories that are in this thing. So I just love it. So let's go on to the next question. All right, ready to tackle another one? How about this one? Man has been made a little lower than what? Was it A, Jesus, B, the animals, C, the God of this world, or D, the angels? This is in Psalm chapter 8. Bible Project, one of my favorite studios that does a lot of these incredible videos. You've got to check it out. Bible Project. They've got a lot of YouTube videos. I'm sure you've seen some of them, but they have a really incredible video about Psalm 8. So Psalm 8 is in the collection, the first books. You've got Psalm 1 and 2. It's got a lot of Messiah type imagery, the anointed one type imagery. Then you have Psalms 3 through 7 is where David is powerless and he's running from his enemies and constantly crying out for God for vindication. Then you have Psalms 9 through 14 in that first book is where these other people, more general people, are just afflicted by these powerful authorities that are crying out for God to vindicate and do all this. And then right in the middle, you have Psalm number 8. And Psalm 8 is just a beautiful reflection on God's creation and his cosmos and all the creation itself. It's just such a reflection of this entire creation, and yet he cares about us, this little dirt creature that he's created and breathed life into, that he cares, that he is placed just below the power of the angels. So go to Psalm chapter 8 and just read the whole thing. It's just absolutely beautiful. But the answer to today's question, I believe, is in verse 5. Let me find it real quick. Yes. For you have made him a little lower than the angels, and you've crowned him with glory and honor. Just a beautiful reflection on, if you look at the mind that was a part of this whole thing, just the intelligence it would take to even make one single-celled organism, and all the complexity of math and physics and astronomy, just the earth and the rotation of the sun and just the elemental table and time, space, matter, the intelligence that would have to be behind that is so unbelievable. And yet he has crowned this little dirt creature, man, with glory and honor and just so many wonderful things if we just trust in him, if we just follow him and try to do the best we can to seek his face. So I love the Psalms. They're just beautiful. So many of them are so poetic, and so many of them kind of start off with this cry for God and then this trust that he will deliver us. So check it out, Psalm 8. Check out the Bible Project video on Psalm 8. It is just very, very well done. So today's answer is D, the angels. All right, how many are you getting right? How many are you getting wrong? Oh, let's see if we can tackle one more. I got a great question here for you. Okay, who is the first Christian martyr? Was it A, James, B, Ananias, C, Paul, or D, Stephen? If you go to Acts chapter 6 through 7, you're introduced to a character named Stephen. Stephen is said here in verse 8, and Stephen, full of faith and power, did great wonders and signs among the people. There's few from the synagogue that started to question whether Stephen was committing blasphemy. So Stephen goes on this wonderful description of the Israelite history, the patriarchs in Egypt, the deliverance by Moses, and just all these times where Israelite just rebelled against God and just constantly would fall back into worldly ways and just kept rebelling against God. And as he's going through and just kind of, woe is you, you stiff-necked and uncircumcised of heart, how you guys are just kind of fake believers. And it just gets to the point where the people that are there get so upset that they go to stone Stephen. So if you go to chapter 7 of Acts, starting in the 54th verse, I want to read through this. When they heard all these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed at him with their teeth. But he, being full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God, and said, Look, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God. This is a Beautiful reference back to the story of Daniel, the visions of Daniel, that the Son of Man, who is a character in Genesis that stomped out the devil, that's this very Messiah imagery, is all kind of played on this concept or this character known as the Son of God, or the Son of Man. Sorry, the Son of Man. It was a character that was promised by God that would stomp the devil, and that he eventually would be at the right hand, the throne of God. And really, that imagery to an Israelite really meant it was God in the flesh. That was really one of the imageries that they had. Then it says here in starting the 57th verse, then they cried out with a loud voice, stopping their ears. There's a concept that you have ears to hear. They don't want to hear anymore. They just think it's such a blasphemy, that it's so against what God would say, that they didn't even want to hear it anymore. So they closed their ears, ran at him to stop him from saying any more things that they thought were blaspheme. That he was seeing God, is basically Jesus, sitting at the right hand of the Father. Let's see, and it says, and the witnesses laid down their clothes at the feet of a young man named Saul. So this is one of the first times we're introduced to the character Saul, who becomes the Apostle Paul by using his Greek name. So then it says, and they stoned Stephen as he was calling on God and saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. Then he knelt down and cried out with a loud voice, Lord, do not charge them with this sin. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. Then, if you go on to Acts chapter 22, this is what Paul now, Saul, that character Saul is first introduced. Here's what he says here in the 22nd chapter, 20th verse. And also I was standing by consenting to Stephen's death and guarding the clothes of those who were killing him. I mean, that is the first martyr, is Stephen. And this guy's story is just amazing through those couple of chapters of the book of Acts. So the answer to this question is D, Stephen. Well, how fun was that? Trivia Tuesday. So check out my Facebook page at Bible Nerd. I post different things every day. I have themes for each day. Monday is motivational or quote Mondays. I'll put a bunch of quotes up. Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday. Wednesday is usually tied to music. So I'll post music videos or things that are really inspiring on Christian music and things like that. Thursday, I usually do a Thankful Thursday. So I have all these challenges and stuff throughout the day that's a lot of fun. And then Friday, I have a discussion or a topic that I'll bring up and just get some interaction, get some people talking back and forth. So it's really a lot of fun. Love where this is going. I love that you're a part of it. Please click subscribe, like, and comment. Let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. I just love going on this journey with you and can't wait to see where God takes us. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless.